Steve, how are you? You look
I
great.
am doing great.
Okay. You didn't
Yeah.
say wonderful this time. I got you.
I always say wonderful. I know I
Yeah.
was kind of keep it fresh.
Okay. Well, it's good. Keeping you look fresh. Um, I'm very excited about today's episode. We've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. This is the Stuff Summer Says podcast
Steve.
with Steve. It's actually with another Steve as well today, but not just any Steve. We've got the voice of Penn State football, Penn State basketball. Really, no offense to Brian Tripp, but the voice of Penn State, in my opinion. Steve Jones joining the podcast for a great interview. But first, we're going to sell you some stuff here on the Stuff Summer Says podcast with Steve. Steve, we have what I'm affectionately calling the stuff. We
So now this is the
created
stuff summer sells.
the Stuff Summer Sells. That would have been even better. Let's redo the whole thing. We're just going to redo the whole brand. We have not one, not two, not three, but four lines of merch. We've got a chicken basket line. We have got a Zombie Nation line. And then I worked with my dear friend Eric Layton to design the Literally No Rivals line and the Game Day line. And Steve, your stuff is coming. It is on the way. There are other people that have already got their stuff. I'm not wearing my stuff because it's not here yet, but it is coming. I'm excited. Are you excited about your stuff?
I can't wait.
Okay.
I am excited about that.
Here's the other thing.
That
If
would
you're
be
listening
wonderful.
to this,
So you're back to wonderful now.
I'm back to wonderful, probably. If you're listening, you can go win stuff on my Instagram. You have to go to the one post and just tag who you would share a Beaver Stadium chicken basket with. Simple as that.
We
Okay.
have a contest for the merch too.
We've already got content. Steve,
This is great.
I was thinking about this the other night. When we launched the blog, we said we were a media empire. Now I think we're just like a conglomerate where we've got media, we've got fashion. Who knows what's next?
It might need some bigger numbers next to it to be a conglomerate, but
we'll go
baby
with that.
steps.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. All right. Anyways, great show. Go ahead and take a listen to this interview with Steve Jones. He was very kind for a really great, interesting chat, really about his career and kind of the behind the scenes of Penn State football. Take a listen there. Steve, normally I say Steve to start a podcast episode or a podcast segment. I can't do that tonight, but it's with good reason. We're joined by slightly more famous Steve than Steve Samsel. Slightly, just a little bit. Steve Jones, the voice of Penn State football. He's got a radio show as well. Really, the voice of Penn State in my head joins the podcast. Steve, how are you?
Great to be with both of you guys tonight. This will be a lot of fun.
All right, Steve. Let's start here. You are entering year what of announcing Penn State football?
Well, basketball will be my 42nd season. Overall, okay. Football would be 32 and 24th as the play-by-play announcer.
Wow. Okay. Does it make you concerned to know that I'm not even 30? Does that stress you out a little bit?
Well, I remember years ago, one of the defensive ends came up to me at practice, like 2008, 9 or something like that. And he says, I've been listening to you my entire life. I sat there and went, okay. I guess that would be true. We are at the point where I think every player on the team was born after I started doing the job. So we're into that interesting phase now.
I'm definitely one of those people. So, hey, all right. So let's stop there for a second. That's certainly a large number of years, no offense. But I think ultimately my question for you is, what is your why? What keeps you coming back now 24 years, 42 years on the hoop side? Keep doing this.
Because it's more fun than ever. I had a vision, before you take any job, you have this grand vision of what the job's going to be like. And then when it exceeds the vision, and it's more fun than you thought it was going to be, and you thought it was going to be a lot of fun to begin with. I mean, that's what keeps happening over and over again. I mean, I just went through a season where Penn State went to and won a Rose Bowl. I just went through a season where Penn State went to and actually won a game in the NCAA basketball tournament. And it's just more fun and more exciting than ever for me because I enjoy it so much. And above all, it's the people I work with. You're sitting there and you look to your right on a football game, and that's Jack Ham. And Jack's phenomenal with no ego and just does such a great job. And then I go to basketball and they have Dick Girardi, and he's the same way. And if you're not working, and working with phenomenal people like that is another reason where you just like can't wait to get to work. And you get to sit there and talk about football and basketball. It's not a bad life. Just sit there, not out there digging ditches in the cold or the heat. I'm talking about football and basketball, and I'm doing it with friends, and that's really a cool job.
I guess. Go ahead, Steve.
We'll probably talk more football today, but I'm curious, how good did basketball feel last year to get to the tournament and win a game? And I mean, obviously you're not playing, but there's been a lot of average to not quite good basketball you've called, to be fair, through the years. So it had to be, or maybe how did it feel to be able to be with a team to that level and call that action at that point?
After they lost to Rutgers, Steve, Dick Girardi and I were done with the broadcast. They had the big lead by 19. They lost the game. And it put them in a precarious position about getting to the NCAA tournament. And I walked out of the booth and I looked at Dick. I said, you know what? You and I have done this for 19 seasons. We've only done one NCAA tournament game. And then from that point on, they took off. And the finish, the winner shot at the end of the Northwestern game in overtime, the winner rebound of the shot to beat Maryland, then the run to the Big Ten tournament championship game, which was reminiscent of the last time they went, because they did the same thing in 2011. They ran the championship game. Then they go to this thing and they win in the opening round and played so well against Texas A&M. It really was a lot of fun, because Will Tiemann of Michigan State, you'll love this story, was complaining to me about a year ago. He says, oh, God, we're not very good this year. I said, I can't believe it. He said, we will go to the tournament. We'll lose in the first round. And I said, excuse me. I said, I've done this for at this point, 40 years. I said, Will, I've been to the tournament 4 times. I said, I've only done 7 NCAA tournament games in my career. And he looked at me and he said, wow, that does give me perspective. So they do all the hard work. We get all the fun of calling it, but it was gratifying to see them do it. That's for sure. Because when you go to the NCAA tournament, that who knows how far anybody goes, but you're playing for the national championship. And that's one of the cool elements of it as you watch. Hey, you're done. There's 32 teams left. Okay, great. Let's see what happens. Can they get to Kansas City?
Thank you.
Are we finding out that Steve Jones is a basketball guy first? Is that where your bread and butter kind of really started and picked up? Is that what I'm learning here?
Well, it's of the 2 jobs, it's the play-by-play job I got first. And if I didn't, I think that job and the performance in that job and the fact that even though you don't get the numbers listening to you, it at least established yourself as somebody that would be considered for the football job. So one led to the other. And I think had I not done basketball here, it would have been exponentially more difficult for me to be seriously considered for the football job. So one really helped the other.
What was that moment like when you kind of got that phone call that you were going to be the play-by-play for Penn State football?
Well, it wasn't a phone call. Halftime of the Penn State Minnesota basketball game, Bud Tallman came up to me and he said, hey, can we talk tomorrow? I said, sure. He says, can we meet at my house? Because he didn't want anybody to know. He didn't want anybody to see me going into the office to talk to him. So I went over at his house, and that's when he offered me the job. And he said, what are we going to do about basketball? And I said, well, I already had thought it out. I said, I would have missed a total of 1 basketball game in 2 years if I'd done football. He said, fine, we're all set on both. So what was it like? Well, it was obviously for me incredible. It was life-changing. At the same time, it also was great for my family because Kathy and I have 5 kids. And so, and we had a few that were getting ready to go to college. so that part didn't hurt either along the way. But it's something I always wanted. It was always a career goal. It's not something you're assured of attaining. It's very difficult to get. And it was one of those incredible can you believe this happened moments.
I
Do
guess
more,
let's
do
see.
more people listen to you on radio or stream now? What are those numbers like? Do you have a sense of where people are hearing you at?
I don't, Steve. I don't know, because I have people telling me that they hear me on stream, with Dick and Jack. I have some people say they listen to us on the radio. I have some people say listen. A lot of people say they listen to us on Sirius XM. Because when Penn State's at home, uh, Sirius XM always picks up the broadcast. Now they do once in a while on the road. And back in 2004, Sirius had called me and they wanted me for the Indiana game for the pregame show. It was 2004. It was going to be on the road. And so they interview me. I answer all the questions. And they're done. He says, "Hey, Steve, hey, thanks a lot for doing this. I appreciate it." I said, "You guys are carrying the game." He says, "Yeah." I said, "Who are your announcers?" And he says, "You." I said, "What?" I never knew until that point that they were carrying the games. So it's a real mix, I think, between stream, over the air, and of course there are people listening in the stadium because it's in real time. And then there are a lot of people who have said they listen on Sirius XM. So
Okay, cool.
Aside from people, where people tune into you, what has been the kind of the biggest change, especially as the world has shifted more digital, in the last really 15 years or so, for you?
really, in terms of what I do, there's no change. I mean, Darian, there really isn't. Now, it's a lot easier, for example, when I get an interview with James Franklin, it's on a digital format and I can put it into a computer and I can, and then I can send it to the network, and I don't have to worry about bringing a bulky tape recorder with me someplace. So, I mean, that digital part has worked out well. You can do editing on computers, which has helped. I've done a daily show for a long time in the Penn State network. And there are times you have to edit out certain elements. So, I've learned how to do that, which has helped. and I've surprised myself at times that maybe I'm a little far more digitally literate than I ever thought I might be along the way. Because when I started doing this way back when, we had reel-to-reel tapes and we'd have to splice and use tape and splice and use tape. And now I can edit off a computer, and most of the time I can get it to work right.
Does this pace of the game with teams getting more plays in football matter at all, or matter much in a broadcast?
It matters for Jack. All right. And but way back when Penn State was playing Pitt, Steve, in Three Rivers Stadium, and we got to halftime, and I felt like Jack had been rushing in the first half, like run. So we got to halftime. I said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" He said, "Sure." I said, it feels like you're rushing. Why are you rushing? He says, "Well, I want to make sure you get it back." And I said, "Geez, Jack, I don't care if I get it back." I said, "Everybody wants to hear what you have to say, and I want to hear what you have to say." Because I feel like Jack and Dick are the two most important people in the broadcast, because they explain the what and the why. I mean, I'm following the ball, but they're explaining what and why. And I think fans really love what and why above all. And I said, "Look, take as long as you need. If you go longer, I'll pick it up and go shorter. If you go shorter, then I'll do more formations and things like that." I said, "But don't feel like you have to hurry." I says, "Because people want to hear what you're thinking." And I said, "I want to hear what you're thinking." And that's one of the parts of the job that people sometimes don't realize, is that you have to be a good listener in the job. You have to be a really good listener in interviews, because if you're just going to the next question, you may miss parts of an answer that could take the interview in a better direction. Same thing with the broadcast. If I'm not listening to what Jack or Dick happen to be saying, and I'm just in my own world thinking, okay, who's the running back out there? All right. Then we may miss an opportunity to go in a much better direction. So listening is an important part of it. And when you have two gems like that, and they are gems, and I think Penn State fans are incredibly fortunate that these are their two analysts for two sports such as this. I think it's important to listen to what they have to say, and it's important for me to listen to what they have to say.
I think the biggest thing for me, with especially Jack, listening to you guys on football games more often, is your relationship shines through the most in the chemistry that you two have away from Jack, the, color analyst. What is it like? What is it like getting to know Jack, working with Jack, hanging out with him? I think, and how has that relationship developed?
He has a tremendous sense of humor. He's really funny. And on top of that, he has no ego. You wouldn't even know that he attended a Super Bowl, let alone played in it, and has 4 Super Bowl rings. Oh, sure, once in a while, we'll be doing something, and he say, "Hey, Steve, come on down and play golf," and Mike Wagner happens to be one of the golf partners or something like that. But Jack's down to earth. He doesn't go around screaming to the heavens he's Jack Ham. Every single person that comes up to him and asks for a picture, he takes. I've never seen him say no. Every single person that asks him for an autograph, he always signs. I've never seen him say no. He treats everybody really well. People he doesn't know, people he does know well. And he is, and he works hard at the job. He watches a lot of video. He talks to a lot of people. When he comes in here to a practice, he spends a lot of time with assistant coaches, and he'll talk to James, and he'll ask James a lot, not a few questions, a lot of questions along the way, because he wants to be as, just like Jack Ham, the football player, he wants to be as prepared as possible for the game. But he's just an easygoing guy. And, and we have a good time because when we do play golf, we play as a team. And that competitive part will come out because we'll get to the first hole and he'll lean over to me and says, "Now look, we can't lose to these guys." And I'll say, "Okay, I got it."
No pressure. No pressure.
But he's just down to earth. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, Jack Ham," and he's like, "Yeah, Jack Ham." And one time in the pregame show, it's like, I don't know, we're like 15, 16 years in. Steve can appreciate that because he knows that we used to do it outside the Jordan Center. Well, in commercial breaks, people are standing there with pictures and cards and things like that, and balls, helmets, and Jack would sign all it. So one day we're out there, and we get to the last commercial break, and we look over, and there's nobody there. And he looks at me, he says, "Well, I guess the shine is off the star." And I looked over, I said, "Well, geez, Jack," I said, "after 16 years, don't you think you got everybody?"
That's a good story. That's great. No, that really comes through in your relationship and really the game call, because I think you just hear that. And I remember being young, I'm from the western half of the state, and kind of start to figure out who sports idols are in the state. And I remember thinking the first time that I heard that it was Jack Ham, going, "Wait a minute, that Jack Ham, like the Steelers Jack Ham," not really noticing. And I think that does come through in the broadcast. I want to talk about 2 other people that are kind of relatively behind the scenes in Roger and Bob. What do they like to work with, and how much do you enjoy working with them?
This entire thing does not happen without Roger and Bob. They do things that we can't do. Okay. Although I do have a Bob story about that, where I did have to do what Bob does. But Roger is the organizer. Roger's the one that makes sure all the commercial breaks are done. Roger's the one that does all the commercial reads, so I don't have to do it, right? And then Bob is the one that takes care of everything technical. There's a problem, they take care of it. We're in Ireland, for goodness sakes. About half hour before we're going to go on the air, nothing's working. And Bob calmly fixes it. It's no big deal. We got it. And these are 2 pros that we just, we rely on all the time, that are just great people. I mean, just really nice, down-to-earth people. Now, I'll tell you the Bob story. Before the Rose Bowl, Penn State had a game with Delaware State. This past December. And Penn State had been originally on the schedule, the game was for 7:30. But then Delaware State and Penn State had decided a couple of weeks ahead of time to play the game at 2:00. So at the Quinnipiac game on December 22nd, Dick Girardi and I were in the post-game show, and I looked up, and They're flashing on the scoreboard. Next game, Delaware State, 7:30. And I glanced up again. It flipped. Next game, Delaware State, 2:00. I'm like, what the heck? I said to Dick, check that out. Well, a week later, we know it's 2:00. So Dick and I get there, and we're supposed to be on at 1:30. We get there about 1:45. It turned out we walked in at the same time. And Dick says, hey, by the way, Steve, Horace Owens is one of the coaches for Delaware State. I said, oh, great. He used to play at Rhode Island. So that's how we know him. So we're going in and we're chit-chatting with him on the court. And suddenly Chelsea Viar calls me, the sports information person. I think, well, that's kind of unusual. So I answered it and I said, yeah, Chelsea, what do you need? He says, hey, Steve, I just dropped off the notes in your booth. Who's engineering the game today? And I said, Bob Taylor. He says, well, there's nothing set up in there. I said, what? I said, there's nothing set up in there. This is 10 after, it's 10 after 1 now. It's 20 minutes to airtime. So I go walking up the stairs and I call Bob. I said, hey, Bob, where are you right now? He says, I'm in Altoona. I said, geez, Bob. I said, we're on the air at 1:30. He goes, no, the game's at 7:30 tonight. He said, no, the game is. I said, no. And these are the tones I'm saying it. So no, Bob, actually the game's now. I said, the game's at 2:00. He says, oh my God. He says, I said, I assume the equipment's in the closet. He says, yeah. I said, well, I'll go grab it. He says, I'll get in the car. He says, I'll talk you through it. And I said, Bob, this is going to be the equivalent of the air traffic controller telling the passenger how to land the plane.
That's great.
I got us on the air at 1:28. Now, I didn't get everything hooked up, but I got about 90% of it.
Well, the plane landed. That's great.
Hey,
I did everything except hit it on the side.
that's
said,
great.
I looked at Dick. I said, where does this wire go? He looks at me and goes, I don't know.
That's great. That's hilarious. Yeah, no, Bob is, I've worked around Bob, I guess would be the best way to say it. Truly one of the best people on the planet.
One of the nicest guys ever. I mean,
yeah.
really.
Yeah. That's funny. What does Steve Jones's game day for a football look like? When does that start? Let's say the kick is at 3:30.
Well, sleep in late. For night games, I crack people up because I'll go out and I usually cut my lawn. I'm not kidding you. People will say, how can you cut your lawn? I said, because it's getting long. I need to do it. What am I supposed to do? I played golf a couple times on night games. But like a lot of times, like I'll look around and say, well, I better get some yard work done. I mean, and then, then I try to time out when I go over to the game. I don't, if it's, I'll maybe watch a little bit of game day, not that much. I watch less of game day than I used to. Ever since they expanded it to 3 hours, I kind of feel like it's so spread out with how they do things. But I'll watch a little bit of it. Maybe I'll watch a little bit of a game that's part of the noon broadcast. Maybe I'll watch a quarter and a half, something like that. Same thing on the road. The road, you're obviously you're in the hotel room, so you're just kind of just waiting for the bus to leave. So I'll watch a little bit of that. But then I get over to the game. And I do have to record something when I get there. So if it's a 3:30 game, that means we're on at 2:00. That means between 1 and 1:30, I have to record this opening sequence that they need for the pregame show with James. That covers Jack, Roger, Bob, and myself walking to the booth. That's what covers that. And so, and then when I'm done with that, I usually go down and I'll say hi to the other announcers. See how they're doing, see if, do they need anything? Is there anything, and conversely, is there anything they can tell me? And then we go from there.
In addition to that timeline, your preparation, you talked about Jack's preparation, everybody else's, the quality of their work. You were ready with your West Virginia charts when? Like they're done and ready somewhere and you were done with them?
The end of April.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, but I think you have to do, Steve, a lot of off-season work. By doing a lot of off-season work, then you get to the week of the game, and now you have a lot of the basics in there. Number, name, height, weight, class, hometown, what's your career high in rushing, what's your career high in receiving, because that's not going to change, right? So, by taking your time in April and May when there's not a game at the end of that week, there's not even a game at the end of the month. Mm-hmm. Then when you get to the week of the game, now, okay, a freshman may be playing, so you move the freshman in. Some guy may have been hurt, the number 2 guys to play, so you move them up and down. I use the Excel program so I can move and cut and paste guys. And so it allows me more time to make sure I'm at practice. It allows more time to take a look at tape. And then I can take a look at what I've done in charts and match it up with the tapes. And I'll go back and forth between looking at all 22s, and every once in a while I'll watch a TV broadcast because I'm checking pronunciations just to make sure. And on the Penn State guys, I just, if I'm not sure, I just flat out walk up to them and ask them, how do you, and this is one of my favorites, Adrian Amos. Now, how can you foul up Adrian Amos? Okay. You can't. Except Tom Bradley, and you know how Tom Bradley is, right? Starts referring to him in practice as Amos. Like, Amos. Well, then Joe starts referring to Amos. Like, oh, geez. So you can tell he's a freshman, Steve. He's going to play. And they, how they used to have the loading dock in the back of Lash Building. He was standing out in the loading dock one day, and I walked up. I said, Adrian, can I ask you a question? He said, sure, Mr. Jones. I said, is it Amos or is it famous Amos cookies? He goes, geez, it's like famous Amos cookies. I said, right. I said, he said, well, you know how Scrap is. I said, yeah, I know. I said, I've been around him longer than you have. So then, of course, I'm calling him Amos on the air. Do you know how many fans came up to me in 4 years and said, why are you the one person that says his name wrong? I said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm not saying his name wrong. No, it's Amos. I said, no, it's not.
We have somebody in my college that our dean mispronounces their name. I'm like, you should be telling the boss that your name is. I'm not telling him. I'm like, okay. Okay, but it's the only one I hear you pronounce it that way.
Yeah, but that's what I told my broadcasting class all the time. I said it's always important to maintain credibility at all times. And one of the things that people pick up on is if you're mispronouncing names. I said, don't do that. Okay. I said, it's a simple fix. Just ask. And if you're not sure, don't say it.
Is your chapter and verse ability to come up with first time this, longest that, is it all notes, or how much of it is do you just know because you've been doing it for so long? Like what percentage is notes and what percentage is steel trap memory? It's
both. There are certain notes I have on the chart at all times. So for example, let's take last 200-yard rushing game. So it's Journey Brown, and he did it in the Cotton Bowl. That note is on the chart. Okay. But that's one I don't have to look at, though. Say Nick Singleton or Katron Allen goes over 200. I know right away it's right there. So stuff like that, though I just keep as a just in case. I'm not going to sit there and say, hey, I don't need that. I'll just do it off the top of my head. I'd rather make sure safe than sorry. But there's other stuff that will happen in the game that I will recall something that happened. Like I was, and I remember stupid stuff. Like Marcus Hagans is here. Well, Marcus Hagans was the backup quarterback to Matt Schaub when they played in Beaver Stadium. He did not play quarterback in the game, but he returned 2 punts in the game. Right. And Penn State killed them that day. They won like 33-14 or something like that, some number. And Heath Miller was the tight end for Virginia, and Matt Schaub was the quarterback, and Penn State won with total and complete ease. I'll be able to remember stuff like that, but you want to be also factually correct. So I make sure I have certain elements there that just in case it's there. And when Bill Belton went over 200 yards against Illinois, it had been 11 years since Penn State had a 200-yard rusher. So the Larry Johnson 279-yard rushing note was on my chart for 11 years. But when I needed it was there. Right. I didn't have to change it. So that was like, okay, I'm going to change that. We're good.
I think, oh, this is my last one.
Go ahead,
and then I'll get out of your way.
No, you're fine.
I think one of the things that listeners get with you and Jack, and you and on basketball as well, is when they tune in, they know what Penn State's doing almost without you giving the score. I mean, and I don't know that you're giving the thing away or you're up or down, but you're in it enough that they're in it with you, because the audio portion is such a personal way to consume a game. Are you aware of that, or do you feel that, or am I projecting my opinions of success or failure on you?
I'm aware of that, but at the same time, I will say this: that the three of us, Jack, Dick, myself, always make sure that, quote, when the quote other guy is doing something right, we give credit to the other guy for doing something right. Great play is a great play. Solomon for Virginia Tech goes out and scores 37 points against Penn State, like he did, or for Clemson. Will Solomon from Clemson scored 37 points. We talked about what a great game he had. John Diebler hit 10 threes against Penn State in the Jordan Center. You're talking about what a great game he had. Same thing with the way Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards played against Penn State last year. Hey, look, great plays are great plays. So you've got to make sure that you appreciate really good stuff. But at the same time, I mean, let's be honest about this. Everybody on the planet knows which team okay, I want to win the game. Okay. But it's not, but I think it's also important, though, that I have never once referred to Penn State as we or us on the air. It's still Penn State and the Nittany Lions. So there's still that quote separator, but everybody knows. For goodness sakes, you say Boo Booey hit the three to win the game at Northwestern, right? You would have hit, you hit the shot, the place would have been crazy, loud, the whole thing. So, but you would have been gone back to doggone it. Right? But the winner hit the shot, so it's like, hey, let's go to the bus. Let's get out of here. And then, the same thing in the Rose Bowl, where you walk out of a Rose Bowl and the football team that you broadcast for won a Rose Bowl game. And it's really cool moments like that. But everybody knows which team you want to win the game. And anybody who's broadcasting for a particular team, I think anybody who sits there and says, I don't want to say that. Anybody who says, "Oh no, I'm neutral," nobody on the planet's neutral about anything, all right? And so, I mean, I think it's just better to tell everybody, which hey, look, everybody knows which team I want to win. I said, if you're assuming I want Penn State to win, you've made a good assumption. And it's okay to do that. It's okay as long as you're giving the other guy credit when the other guy's doing something right.
It makes sense too. You're the voice of Penn State football. You're not the voice of college football. You're the voice of Penn State football, and people find comfort in that. With you.
Chris Fowler's expected to be down the middle, and he does a brilliant job. I mean, Steve would agree. I think Chris does a brilliant job of being down the middle. And there's an old story, Kurt Gowdy. This goes way back there. This is before your time. Okay. And Steve knows this story. Kurt Gowdy did a Rose Bowl. And this is back when there were no emails, Darian. It was letters. And it was Ohio State, USC. So it's over with. And Kurt had a home up in Maine. And all of a sudden, after January 1st, all these letters arrive. And it's all these letters from Ohio State fans complaining to him about what a pro-USC broadcast he did. It was disgusting. It's like, oh, my God. So he calls Carl Lindemann, who's the head of NBC Sports. He says, hey, Carl, could you send me the tape? He says, I must have done something wrong. He says, oh, yeah, sure, we'll send it up to you. Well, the next day, the Los Angeles Mail came in. How could you be so pro-Ohio State? What's wrong with you? Well, yeah, he didn't give USC any credit. He called Carl Lindemann back up. He says, don't bother. It turned out fine.
That's great. That's great. I have two more for you. I think the first one's a relatively quick one. What is the one place that you, whether it's basketball or football, that when it's on the schedule and you just go, oh God, that place is on the schedule, like, yeah, and it's a tough place to call a game, or it's your least favorite place to call a game?
Well, the least favorite place I ever called a game was where the Commanders play, FedEx Field. You were in the visitors broadcast booth, and Merrill Reese and I have talked about this several times because Merrill hates that place. And he's done a bunch of games there. I only did it one time. You're in the corner of the end zone and you're low. I mean, it's one thing to be in the corner, but you're up. For example, the Cowboys, we're on the, for the Cotton Bowl, we're at the goal line, but we're up. If you're up, you could see everything. That's not a problem. I mean, the Pinstripe Bowl was an exception. That's a baseball park. So they gave us the Yankees broadcast booth, so we were behind the goalposts. But the worst one was FedEx, low, and it's just like, geez. And Auburn wasn't great either. I mean, we're a little higher at Auburn. I was surprised about the Auburn one. That one surprised me.
Their press box is over in the corner, right?
Yeah, it's in the corner, and it used to be at midfield. But as Brad Sham, the Cowboys broadcaster, said to me, he says, Jerry Jones went up to me, he says, Brad, I love you. He says, but see all those ones in the middle? He says, I need to sell them. So,
No.
I mean, he's not wrong. But so, yeah, FedEx is the worst. The Pinstripe Bowl I can accept because, look, it's the Yankee Stadium and, it's the Yankee broadcast booth. And in order to be at the 50, those are luxury suites, which weren't sold. But you had to buy the luxury suite to do the game, and Learfield wasn't going to do that. So, so those would be those. FedEx was the worst one of all of them. As time has gone, there have been more and more places that you're near the goal line. Rose Bowl, we're at the 50-yard line. Beaver Stadium, we're at the 40, 45. The one that's bizarre is Acrisure Stadium, Heinz Field, because they have the writers from the 50 to the 10. And then they have the broadcast. Bill Hillgrove, they're about the 10-yard line, and then we're in the end zone. And not behind the end zone. I'm talking between the goal line and the end line. So, okay. No offense to the writers. Like, we're doing the game in real time. Shouldn't we be at the 50? Hey, you're writing after the game. You've got replays left and right and so forth. Can't you be? Hey, I kind of felt they had that one reversed. That was a little, I thought that's a kind of a bizarre way to do it.
I'll leave you with this then, Steve. I think one thing I want to ask, we talked about number of years, and there are a lot of numbers of years there. How much longer do you want to keep doing this?
Well, if I feel the way I feel now, I think I've got at least 10 to 12 more seasons left in me. I feel great. Hair color's changed over the years. Number of follicles has changed over the years. But I mean, I work with great people. I have a great time with it. I enjoy the job more than ever. And the key is to keep yourself as sharp as possible. You don't want to be somebody that's fading into the sunset trying to hang on to the job either. That would be wrong for whomever would be next to do the job, or you'd be holding them back. But again, if I feel the way I feel now, I could go another 10 to 12 years because right now, knock on wood, I feel pretty good.
Are you as excited for the season now as you were 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve, I always am. I mean, obviously this team is one that this is a team that has a lot of possibilities. And they have a lot of talent. Now it's a question of whether they can get over the hurdles, and everybody knows what the hurdles happen to be. And if they can do that, then, this is the last year of the 14 playoff. And then after that, it goes to 12. And maybe, depending on new contracts, maybe down the road, it goes to 16, which will be exciting and different. New places to go to down the road. I mean, I've never been to Oregon or Washington. So, I mean, that's, we can, one of these days we'll talk about realignment. I was in Hershey last Thursday, Steve, with Mike Rhodes. And so it got to the football part. So the football part was my part. And it was, I was doing Q&A. And somebody asked me about Oregon and Washington. And before I even started and answered, there's a couple hundred people there. The groan in the room, like, wow, And then I was talking with Mike Gross from Lancaster, and he said he was around a group, and the same thing happened with them when when it was brought up. People groaned about it.
Interesting. I'm excited about those places. I can't wait to go to them.
Well, me too. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's exciting, and I was honest with him. I said, look, I said, here's the bottom line. When Nebraska came in, I was like, okay, you needed a 12 team. You couldn't get Notre Dame. So, okay, port in the storm. Nebraska works. That's fine. So I was fine with it. Maryland and Rutgers, well, it's great to have them close and you can drive. No offense to them. I was not like excited about them being in the conference. So it was like, all right. Well, if this is what they think they have to do, well, this is different. USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, West Coast swings. Everybody's job in the Big Ten as a coach. So whether you are Chip Kelly, Mick Cronin, Lincoln Riley, Andy Enfield, Kalen DeBoer, Mike Hopkins, Dana Altman, or Dan Lanning, your job starting in 2024 just got much harder. At the same time, if you are Juwan Howard, Jim Harbaugh, Ryan Day, right? Chris Holtman, James Franklin, Mike Rhodes, right? Luke Fickell, Greg Gard, your job just got harder starting in 2024 as well because the conference will be so much deeper. But you can still get to the playoff with 2 and maybe 3 losses, depending on who it is because of the expanded playoff. But everybody's job just got harder. And I think for fans, it's exciting because I think the schedules will get deeper.
I hope so. I think so too, though.
Yeah.
Steve knows that I disagree with this, Steve, on that. I don't know. We'll save that discussion for another day.
You would have been one of the ones that groaned.
Oh yeah. It's
yeah.
And I think honestly, it's for me is we enjoy going. I've been to a lot of Penn State football games, home and away. I've missed about 5 in the last 10 years. I keep looking at the bank statement, and start thinking, and no offense to you, Steve, but it's covered for you. So that's part of it.
That's true.
All right, Steve.
Oh, understand. We'll talk about that another time. It's interesting. You're losing the regionalism, but you're gaining the nationalism of it, and I think it's an interesting. It's an interesting debate between people, and a friendly debate.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Steve, this was a friendly conversation. This is your moment to shine, even though this was all your moment to shine. What would you like to plug? What would you like to let people know that are listening?
No,
where can they find Steve Jones's broadcast this fall and winter?
Well, we're on 60 stations on the radio network, plus GoPSUSports.com, plus I think iTunes, plus I think Sirius XM. So I'm usually the last person to ask. If you would ask somebody in charge at Learfield, they'd be able to tell you the entire list, chapter and verse. But I know we get going with the talk show with James Franklin and the coaches show on the 31st, and then 6 o'clock on the 2nd. Let's see. Steve asked me about the anticipation of the season. Well, that will be go time. Let's see what they have.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, Steve, very much.
Hey, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I had a great time.
Steve, I think the main takeaway for me was the part about Steve Jones mowing his lawn on game days. Like I'm kind of sitting here chuckling about the fact that Steve Jones, you're just driving by Steve Jones's house and he's like, oh, wait, there's a football game in about a couple hours. He's out there cutting the grass.
So basically what you're saying is he has more of a wide-ranging life than we do because he's mowing his lawn and I'm probably getting ready to set up a tailgate or having set up a tailgate. So
yeah,
he's more productive on Saturdays.
Clearly.
The best part that he said that I didn't bring up was that Bud Tallman met him at his house, right? Or had him come to his house to tell him about the job. So Bud Tallman, longtime PR guy for Penn State. Before he was for Penn State, he did Navy. He had Roger Staubach. He did the Buffalo Bills. He had O.J. Simpson that he did PR for, right? When O.J. Simpson was traded to the San Francisco 49ers, Bud went into the office because they were trading him. They lived next door. Bud and his wife lived next door to the TV broadcaster anchor in Buffalo, whoever that was at the time. That guy came over and was talking to Bud's wife, and she's like, oh, Bud went into the office. They're trading OJ. That guy then went on the air and broke the news that OJ was being traded because but didn't break it equally among everybody else. So he learned from that lesson to make sure that nobody knew that was happening with Steve, apparently, when that was happening.
That is interesting. That's a good little backstory on that little backstory that was in the interview. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think for me, you can, and I brought this up with him on the podcast, on the interview, you can really tell the camaraderie and the chemistry that he has both with the on the air and off the air people. And I think that comes through. And I think that's what makes, for a lot of people listening to a Penn State broadcast, so comfortable, so warm. So it is, having Steve on this podcast, Steve Jones, the slightly more famous one. That one, that's very cool, because that is a voice of my youth. That is the voice that I think of when I think of football. Him and Bill Hillgrove growing up listening to games on the radio. So I think that really, and then that chemistry really shines through. The other thing that I was floored at was him saying that April he has his game sheets done and ready. That is just insane to me for that long.
Yeah, he just gets. I knew he got them done ahead of time. I thought it might have been May or June, but yeah, so he's done that far in advance and then move stuff around. I think maybe the whole new NIL stuff and the free agency basically of college football could maybe tweak some of that in what he does. But again, you got stuff done. It's not going to change. You got your sheets done. And you can tweak it. So his preparation, I think, is one of the things that makes him super at what he does. I think who he's cheering for, who he's calling the game for, like he talked about. And it's not cheering, that's not the right word, but who's paying the bill and who's doing it. And I think that's fine. He's the Penn State guy. So I like everything about what he does, because I know what the team's doing. I know I'm not going to miss anything with him. Like when he talked about how much longer he's going to do it, he's sharp still. There's not, I don't ever feel like I'm missing anything. And I do feel like I can tune in and know what's going on just by listening to the tone of their voice. I can be like, oh, this must be a closer game than I thought if I wasn't paying attention before, and those kind of things.
I would be interested to almost ask that same question to Jack, because I feel like it really comes through with Jack a little bit more. On a close game, he doesn't get tense, but he gets very intense, and it can really tell when his football brain is plugged in and working. And I've always picked up on that from an early age.
Well, and he's more of a we guy. Steve's right. Steve does not. Yeah. Steve says Penn State. Jack will say we, right?
Which is fine.
Totally. Jack wore the uniform and played for him too. So that's
that's also a great point. Yeah, it's funny you said that. Corey Geiger and I used to have he used to have a conversation about this. I never would write we, obviously, but he always said you can't say we unless you played for them or you got your degree there. And I thought that was always kind of an interesting way to look at it. But yeah, like you said, I think Steve, much like Brian Tripp does a great job with this too, is there is a professionalism of the big moment happened, regardless of who the big moment happened for. That big moment happened. And I think that is what makes regional broadcasters great. It can be frustrating when you listen to some baseball games and you've got the regional broadcasters and you can tell who they are, who is paying the bills a lot more clearly. And it's just it loses its emphasis. It loses, it feels cheap. It cheapens the experience, I think, because you as a sports fan know that was an insane catch. That was a big moment in this game. Call it out like that. You are my eyes and ears of the game as a sports announcer. Call it out. And I think Steve does a great job of that.
Yep, I think it's a great assessment.
All right, Steve Samsel, this one. We've got a little segment that you worked up. You wanna tee it up? Your little homework segment.
Is this me
this week? Yeah, this is you. I think this was your idea.
The 5 things.
Yeah. Well, and I think this comes from your newsletter, which you can subscribe to at stuffsummersays.com/newsletter.
You framed it as 5 things. Go ahead.
In the stadium, 5 things in the stadium that you would change about the Penn State game day experience, right? That was the homework assignment?
Sure. Let's go with that.
Oh, God. All right.
I think that's what I did.
All right. You want to go first?
Yeah, you go first, because mine are going to freak you out, and mine you already know a couple of them.
Oh, God. All right. I'm gonna go 5-1 because there is a minor priority list to the number 1 thing on my list. Yep. All right, number 5, and I think you'll agree with this one: out of town scores that actually matter. I want to see out of town live updating scores that actually matter. I know for a fact that I can get the score of the Ohio State game at that very second if the cell phone service is working, to what down they're on, what yard line they're on, where the ball, what hash it's in, if it's a pass, it's a throw, a punt. So that would be my number 5 that I would fix in the stadium. This one is a little under stadium, but I'm going to roll with it. I'm going to squeeze it in there, fudge it in there for this was what's graded on completion, not on quality. Number 4 is more local food vendors. We've talked about this before. More local food vendors inside Beaver Stadium. I want to taste Pennsylvania when I walk into the stadium. I want on the east side. I'm stealing your idea, but on the east side, I want Philly cheesesteaks, and on the west side, I want pierogies and Permani Brothers sandwiches or whatever.
They should be listening and doing this stuff tomorrow.
I heard a rumor that, and I think there is going to be like a more local brewery in the stadium this year. I don't know. I apologize. I forget what the name of that is. But I think that's a good little thing. We had a guest on from the creamery a few weeks back, and they talked about the importance of having that in the stadium. It should be a showcase of Pennsylvania, very much like the farm show. When you go to the farm show, you get a taste of everything in PA. And
so to play on it, there should be a media day for that, right? Like maybe it's the 26th when they do this fan practice day or whatever the heck that's going to be. Invite the media to come taste the flavors of Pennsylvania. They're going to be available in the stadium next week, right? You get the soft stories, you get the promotion, you get whatever. It's great.
Steve, is that you saying that you just want to go eat food? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think it's a great idea. I think the activation is what I'm excited about. You're hitting 1,000. You're batting great so far. Can't wait for the rest of
them. Number 3, the pregame video for the last 5 years, 6 years, maybe even more, has felt a little stale. Maybe make one. You've got enough people on that staff, hopefully. Maybe make one for each game. Maybe give me a new storyline. Maybe less Joe Paterno's feet and more, I don't know, but more LeVar Leap, I guess, would be put it.
Maybe Todd Blackledge and Kurt Warner for the first game somehow against West Virginia.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good little
show me some footage from that, whatever else, and set the stage.
Okay. Yeah, and usually they do a nice job of anytime Mr. Blackledge is back in Beaver Stadium. They usually do a good job of acknowledging him and saying, "Welcome back, Todd." Okay, number 2. This one is a little interesting. I feel like one scoreboard should be dedicated specifically to replays. Like I should know the play is over. Okay, I'm going to turn and look for the replays on that scoreboard. You don't always get the replays, and then you get the little make some noise animations, and I just want sometimes I just want to watch the replay. That is, I am sacrificing replays as a fan coming to the stadium, so give me the replays here.
Right. I'm going to take you off track a second.
Okay.
The make some noise animations and the guys they recorded at Haluba Hall 6 weeks ago. Let me hear you, Beaver Stadium. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I knew you were gonna. I almost put that on the list. I'm okay. I almost put that on the list because I knew it would make you chuckle. I am okay with the there's the make some noise, that one. But I am the player ones. The player ones feel a little forced, little kind of prisoner captive. I was forced to do this.
Well, they're probably getting paid now. I feel less prisoner captive now. They're probably getting paid for it.
Some of them have been very good. There have been others that have been total duds. That's all I'll say on that.
Okay. Number one.
I've talked about this before. I've said this time and time. I think we did a similar list maybe about a year and a half ago. I want a light show in the stadium. I want the new lights that can do the light show. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. You don't want the phone light thing. You want full on lights.
No, I want the full on imagine flashing strobe lights and Zombie Nation playing, and it'd be great.
Like Purdue, where football tickets cost $15.
Exactly. Oh, God damn it. I think this was it. We actually had this conversation, the exact same conversation. Purdue episode. It was great. I like it. It's cool. Alabama does it. I
think people would enjoy it.
Gets the people going. All right.
Okay, number 5 for me.
Okay.
It's seating. Solve the student seating situation. Let them get their asses in there quicker. Let them get geeked. I just think it always feels so slowly. Not maybe they're arriving late, maybe whatever. Let's go back to festival seating for the students. Pick your seat, get your ass down there where you want to be, and let's get the game going.
I don't think that's a structure thing. I think that's students not showing up. When I was involved with Nittanyville, and this was right around fireworks kind of started coming, we had talked about them shooting off fireworks to let you know there's an hour till kickoff and then 30 minutes till kickoff. I know that the Steelers do something like that. And they also have they have their horn. They have a true steel mill horn that they blow off that goes and kind of says, all right, time to get to work is what they call it. I think that's that to me activate the students earlier, and then people okay, got to get to the game now.
That's fair. Might not make a difference, but that's fair.
Yeah.
I'd cell service number 4, right? I just think it's almost, I appreciate how many people are there. I understand how many people are there. I can use all my fingers and toes a couple hundred times and count how many people are there. It just feels like they should be able to figure that issue out. New York City doesn't have issues. Bring in some portable antennas, do something, and let people not be wondering what's going on.
It's gotten mildly better, and I don't know if that is just because I switched cell phone providers a few years back, but it has gotten mildly better for me. That being said, it is ridiculous that you can't really get cell phone service
and then
during a game.
Going to your number 5 or 4, and it's the exact opposite of the cell phone service. Give me out-of-town scores. Give me out-of-town scores that matter. Announce them. Don't put them on the ribbon board small where I'm going to miss it. People give a shit that Ohio State is losing any day, all the time. They care if Michigan's losing any day, all the time. They care about Notre Dame. They care about the number 1 team in the country. You'll get some pop from the fans one way or the other. Share the scores. It seems easy.
Did happen, but it wasn't consistent. And I actually almost wrote that down as my list of things that bother me in stadium is consistency. One week they'll play Sweet Caroline at this part, and then the next week they won't even play it at all.
Got you covered, baby.
See,
even Guinness is chiming in. I've got you covered.
We do this.
Number 2, consistency of the show. Make every third down the same. Even if it's 3rd and 1 in the first quarter, if you're going to play jaws and zoom in and out on the 3rd down sign, you do it on 3rd down in the first quarter, just like you do it in the 4th quarter. I want to know when Neil Diamond's coming. I want to know when Bon Jovi's coming, and I want it to be the same every time. Zombie Nation, when something goes off big, play that. But the rest of the time, don't put your finger in the air and say, oh, we're going to get people excited because it's this thing that's going to work. Let us know how the show runs. Let us be a part of it because the stuff's consistent and we know when to get into it. Consistency.
There we go. Number 1.
Well, and you don't like it at all. Well, you don't like that I don't like it. I would improve your pregame video and make a new one for every game and time it out so that video ends with the team coming out of the tunnel and running on the field. I don't need that mic man who I don't care about. I care about the players if I care about anything at all. I want to see them running on the field. So are you ready for Penn State football?
For those just tuning in, for those just tuning in, and whoever the mic man is, I apologize on behalf of my podcast partner because he apparently has a vendetta. Here's what I think. Back in the 80s, Steve didn't get that job.
No, we didn't do that back then. They said, let's bring on the Lions. That was it. They came to the thing, which is great. You're in an arena. You're in a coliseum for competition, and they're going to bring on the Lions. It was wonderful. There you go. We did solve a lot of problems there. If people would listen, they'd have better food. They'd have better cell versus out-of-town scores. Your 5 have a better chance of getting adopted than my 5.
I'm still just shook about this. I knew it was coming when I was sitting down. I was like, Steve's going to say the mic man thing. Here he says the mic man thing. I will say, and I brought this up the last time we did a similar list to this. The one thing that Michigan does that I thoroughly enjoy is their entrance. And it is timed in that manner with they have the ultimate flex because James Earl Jones is an alumni. So they got him to do their pregame pump up video, but it's timed with them with I think it's one of the older, maybe Bo or one of the older coaches. And then it shows him letting the team go. And then right as you see that, you also see Harbaugh let the team go and they run out onto the field and did the banner thing. It's very cool.
Maybe I'd care less about the football, are you ready thing, if I would take a victory of the consistency thing, right? Like, we're going to do this at this time. This is what we're committed to. And it's, it from week to week, so fans can count on it. If I could get that, I think that'd be a W in terms of game presentation.
I think that's fair. I don't think anything you said, anything I disagree with there. All right. Anything else you want to beat up on the stadium folks?
No. Mike guy's taking a break now. He's going to a neutral corner to recover from his wound.
Yeah, because you put a beat down on him. That poor guy. We're gonna get him on for an interview.
Should
let you guys just go at it. Hey, why is your job?
And that's the kid. The reason the kid wants the job is to be the kid that says, "Are you ready for Penn State football?" Too. Like, it's the best part about the gig, right? So
that is. I mean, look, I am friends with somebody that was the Lion. I wanted to be the Lion, but I realized that I can move on, and I think it's time for you, Steve, to move on because you didn't get that job, and that's why you're bitter about it. I'm telling you, because that is why you're bitter about it. All right, moving on. Steve, happy first day of classes to you.
Welcome to fall semester at Penn State.
Welcome to fall semester, which means we're getting closer to football season. Thank God. But more importantly, I want to know this question in this week's Old Guy, Young Guy, Steve. What was Steve Sampsell's favorite elective? Non-College of Com, non-needed to required to graduate, but kind of required to graduate class that he took at Penn State?
I had a Russian history class, like Russian and Soviet history, like in the 80s, which was interesting. And the stories that come with the classes that come with the best stories are gym classes, both electives. Okay. Handball, I think we've talked about before.
No, we haven't.
Oh, okay. So handball class, spring senior year.
Team or individual?
Individual. So you played in rec hall. There were like 16 kids in the class. There were 8 courts. So if you won, you moved to your right. If you lost, you moved to your left. And the grade was a bell curve based on where you ended up in the rooms. You were allowed 3 misses.
This is competitive.
Yes, you were allowed three misses during the semester. The last day of classes, after the Russian history class in Willard Building, I went down to the cafe and patiently waited for them to open at 11. And we stayed there all day. And about 1:15, I realized I had a 125 gym class and I probably wasn't in condition to go. And I'm pretty sure it was my 4th miss. So we weighed the merits of failing college because you missed the 4th handball class or staying there and not showing up. I did not go, so I assume maybe my math was off on the number that I missed, and I did pass the gym class. But there was a lot of drama outside the cafe for just a little bit about, well, Steve, you could fake it through gym class. You'd be all right in the shape you're in, and it wouldn't have been pretty. So that was that one. And then fall of senior year, I took cross country skiing. Cross country skiing, which was the golf course check-in area, pro shop was still in rec hall at that time on backside of rec hall. So you got your skis there. You had to cross Atherton Street to go skiing, and the weather was warm, so we did a lot of running. There wasn't a lot of snow, but the one day there was snow, I got my skis, started across Atherton Street, the skis over my shoulder, got just over the air side and slipped on some ice and fell down, and the skis like hit me. So I busted my lip up cross country skiing before I ever got on the skis. And then I skied, and then I went to the Collegiate and met my wife to be, whom I was dating then. And she said, "What happened to your lip?" And I told her that I fell carrying cross country skis. And she told me I was kind of a dumbass, and I probably don't disagree.
Well,
so there you go.
I did not know the handball story. It wasn't my favorite elective, but I do have an elective related similar story. So this would have been my sophomore year. There was a class that I don't know why we took it, but I took it with Connor Hooley, who worked with the Collegiate with me. It was taught by this Irish guy. His name was either Scottish or Irish. His name was Garrett something, and I totally forget his last name. But it was in West Commons, and it was a medieval warfare class. And it was a relatively easy elective. You just kind of had to study for it. And the night before a big test, like it wasn't maybe the final, but it would have been like one of the first tests of the year because it was February. Penn State played Michigan at the BJC, and this is the Trey Burke year that Penn State beat them. It was they were the number 2 or 3 team. They went on to the Final Four that year, I think. Maybe that was it the year they won a national championship. I can't remember exactly. But we rushed the court, and it still is one of my favorite memories as a Penn State student. And so we're like, well, we have to go celebrate. We went to Chris Holmes's apartment, and Matt Trable, God rest his soul, he was like, here, take a shot of this to celebrate. And I said, dumb sophomore, said, sure. It was a shot of Everclear, and I am 125 pounds at this point, like soaking wet. And I started to feel a little fuzzy at that point. And then somehow, and I'm like, guys, I have to take this test. I need to go study for this test. They're like, somebody else handed me, I think it was Matt again, handed me another shot of Everclear. Anyways, long story short, I was fine, but I made it back to Pollock, stayed up till 5 a.m. that morning studying for this test because I had to wait until the alcohol worked its way enough through my system that I could retain the information that I was learning, and took the test. I think I passed the test. I passed the class. It was a very interesting class.
Okay, that's not bad.
So
did you add food to help get sooner through, or did you just?
So I used to go into the mix. I don't know if the mix is still there.
Still there, but I mean,
I would buy a half gallon of iced tea, creamery iced tea, and then like a Reese's or two, and eat those. I'm trying to think what my favorite elective. The one that I took that was probably the most interesting, that has no bearing on my life whatsoever, was a class all about Australia. It was just about the history of Australia. That one was relatively interesting. I of course took the Beatles class, and I think I took the history of rap class as well. Those were the two other. I didn't take any gym classes though.
Yeah, I remember those as electives. I had an Olympic sports history class, but I think that might have been my minor. As part of my minor that it counted for. So yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, that's
nice.
enough about our favorite electives. There are good stories there. All right. Let's recap the show. Thank you to Steve Jones for spending some time with us. I don't really feel like he needs the plug, but as he mentioned, that you can listen to him on the Penn State Sports Network this fall, calling football games, and then over the winter calling basketball games. Let's see. We've got merch now. This is the first time we're saying this, so you can go buy merch. It is stuffsummersays.com/the stuff, all one word there, the stuff. Really excited about those. We've got let's see, we've got a newsletter. We just sent one out last week. It was very interesting from Mr. Samsel. He really wants a hockey game, and I also really want a hockey game at Beaver Stadium. Those are some of the tips of things we talk about there. You can sign up at stuffsummersays.com/newsletter. Do that. We've got emails. Mine is Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve's is
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
We've got a YouTube page somewhere in this general vicinity. You should hit the like and subscribe button. We've got a podcast which you're listening to. It is well, I gotta get the 5-star and thumbs up thing first. Sorry, 5-star thumbs up. Make sure you do that. We have social handles. We have a slight announcement about those. I did join TikTok. I didn't tell you about that one, Steve. Well, so your clips are out there on the TikTok first. You are on TikTok now.
Great.
You excited? Great.
Woo-hoo.
Super excited. So you're on there.
Traffic, baby.
At Stuff Summer Says.
You should tag the Glasgow Rangers when you do that now. Maybe we'll get some.
Yes. Wait until the Glasgow Rangers episode of this podcast. And then I get an Instagram, which is Stuff Summer Says. We're posting similar content there. There's a contest on there. You can win some merch. This is a lot of stuff to plug. Where at the end, it is my Twitter handle, which is at Stuff Summer Says. Steve's is
at Steve Samsel.
Did we miss anything?
No, thanks for sticking with us. If you're this far, if you pieced it up and you come to the end, you need to go back because you missed some good stuff.
You missed a lot of good stuff, and you're not going to want to miss next week's episode because it's football. We get to talk about football. I'm excited. All right, goodbye.